Welcome back, second graders. In the last session, we discussed Martin Luther King Jr. finding his voice. Today, we are going to talk about his role in the Montgomery, Alabama bus boycott. The title of this chapter is The Bus Boycott. In the 1950s, many cities had segregated buses. African Americans were forced to sit in the back, and they had to give up their seats to white people. One day in 1955, the year after King arrived in Montgomery, Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat. She was arrested. Rosa Parks sits on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama. You can see she is sitting in the front and refusing to give up her seat. African Americans in Montgomery supported Parks. They wanted to fight the unfair law with a bus boycott. They asked people to walk or drive for one day instead of taking the bus. A boycott is when you stop doing something. No one was sure the boycott would work. Few African Americans in Montgomery had cars at this time. Many people needed to ride a bus to get to their jobs. On a day of the boycott, empty buses rolled through Montgomery and hundreds of people walked to work. The caption reads, "On the day the boycott began, almost all of the African Americans in Montgomery stayed off the buses." They came together to show that if they were not going to be treated fairly, they were not going to ride the bus and they were not going to support the transportation system. People wanted to make the boycott last for 3 or 4 days. They asked King to lead the boycott, and he agreed. He gave a speech and said that the people of Montgomery would work and fight until justice runs down like water. Those who had come to hear him clapped so hard and cheered so loud that the building shook. The caption reads, "King inspired the people of Montgomery to work together peacefully against segregation." So when we talk about the role that Martin Luther King Jr. played in the Montgomery, Alabama boycott, we now know that he helped to lead by giving a speech to the people, and he said that they would work and fight until justice runs down like water. The boycott lasted for a week and then another week. People kept the boycott going for over a year. People walked for miles while the empty city buses drove through Montgomery's streets. People made great sacrifices because they knew the boycott was important. One elderly woman who walked across town said, "I'm not walking for myself, I'm walking for my children and my grandchildren." So the word sacrifices means that you give something up for the better of other people. The caption reads, "Newspapers across the country printed stories about the Montgomery bus boycott." In 1956, the Supreme Court ruled that the Montgomery law was not fair. Segregation was not allowed on buses. The boycott had worked. The people of Montgomery had peacefully changed the unfair law. King and his wife, Coretta, celebrate the end of the Montgomery bus boycott with others. So their peaceful protest worked. And they didn't give up, even though it was only supposed to last a few days and lasted for more than a year. They won at the end and the law was changed.